Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Business of Writing. And today I've got a special guest, Gary Collins. You may have seen him at 20 Books talking about health, but he's also the guy behind The Simple Life and has a lot of experience in how to simplify your life economically, stress wise. And we thought we'd have him come on today and talk about how we can simplify a writer's life. How you doing, Gary?
Doing good, doing great. Living in Operation Travel Trailer for this part of the year. As people who may not know, I live off grid and in my travel trailer part of the year.
Yeah, so you not only do you live off grid, but you've got a couple different locations, right? So you kind of
Yeah.
move with the weather and
Oh yeah, it's part of the simple life. It's
yeah.
part of what I teach, and like we were talking before, I'm getting ready to possibly. I shouldn't say possibly. It will happen. I'm going to build a studio in another state where warm weather, so I can run my podcast and do interviews a little differently. And that's the expansion of the business side of I've grown to a point where I think I may be outgrowing the travel trailer life. I'm not sure. I've been doing this for 7 years.
Mm.
So we'll see. I always keep an open mind.
Well, that's just kind of life, right? You try
Yeah.
something out and you decide if it works for you or not. It's I say to writers a lot of times where they'll be thinking that they should be writing less, right? They'll be like, oh, I'm at that age, I should retire. And it's like, well, you give it a try, go do the life on the beach thing. And, you may really enjoy it. You may find out that, what, it's not for you, but not, you've tried it, right? Now you're coming from a place of experience.
Well, yeah. And it's interesting you say that. I don't know if we talked about when I interviewed you for my podcast, but I've been doing an experiment for a year, and we can talk about this for authors as well, because I think it ties in that I'm working for a year straight with
Mm-hmm.
no vacations, no breaks to get the business back on track, because I spent 5 years building my house off the grid and all those projects and everything. So I put it on the back burner a little bit. I was still writing, but it was very difficult during that time frame. And by doing that, though, I learned that you have to do something in
Mm.
life, that you have to keep engaged. I realize I'm not the kind of person that could retire and tune out. I'm going to be doing something the rest of my life that is something to help other people, teach something along those lines, speaking, writing. It's a plan for the next, until I take my last breath, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely understand that. I've never been one of those people that's like, oh, I want to do this for so much time and then retire. It's usually once I finish some project, it's a little bit of a break. And then it's like, I'm either inspired to do something else or I just, can't let the grass grow under my feet.
Well, not only that, but when you're doing something you truly enjoy, and for those who don't know too, I worked in the government for half my life, the federal government. So I have a little different skew on a lot of things. But what it taught me when I run my own business and do things the way I want to do them, I mean, this is the happiest I've ever been in my life.
Mm.
I truly am living the life I want to live. Well, that kind of eliminated the retirement mindset. That now that I do what I want to do, I make a good living, the business is growing. I don't even think about retirement because
Mm.
it's just, I'm not in the grind anymore. I'm not chasing a carrot. It's strange how that all evolved. And I honestly didn't see that coming when I started my business and started being a writer. Seriously, I still thought I'm working towards retirement.
Mm.
Now I'm working to be more financially free. I already am, but to be more so. So the whole paradigm changed
Mm-hmm.
with what I do today.
Well, let's talk about, you mentioned financial freedom, and I know that's something that you've done a lot of research on, you've written books on, and coming from the perspective of an author that's starting to do okay and make some money, and they're at that point where they're thinking, hey, I might be able to do this full time. Maybe if you could talk to some of the things that they could do to simplify their life and to make sure that they have that financial freedom to, go to their boss and say, hey, I'm done here. I'm going to go over and do what I truly enjoy, which is write these books.
Yeah, and being a writer, it's difficult because we know that to make a living as a writer is one of the hardest career paths that you can take. And that's not to discourage people, but me and you firmly believe if you do it right, your odds of being able to make a living as an author are greatly enhanced.
Yes.
And I teach the three-legged stool in the simple life. It's finding optimal health, financial freedom by being debt-free, and finding your life purpose. You do those three things, and I have found, not only personally, but teaching others, that your life those, right? Authors typically are of poor health. We tend to cubbyhole ourselves away. We write in, long stretches. We don't get breaks. We over-caffeinate. We overdo a lot of things. And for me and authors who I have found who put their health as focus number one, and that's everything I teach. Yeah, I'm a former health guy. I still am, but my main business when I got out of the government was teaching primal health and working with athletes. Well, that's never gone away. I look at my health as the first step in freedom. And that's why I teach that three-legged stool. For authors, you have kind of that life purpose thing already figured out, which is a huge head start over most people in America today. So these other two become even more prominent. So with health, what it does is I always teach people, unhealthy gut, unhealthy mind. Our digestive system is directly tied to our brain through the vagus nerve. So there's communication going between our digestive system and what's going on in our bodies and our brain at all times. Once you try and get your health together and you start to find your stride health-wise, first of all, it doesn't take that much time. People, this is all complete BS in the health world. There's no money in healthy people. There's a reason why in America we spend ridiculous amounts of money trying to achieve health, which we never seem to achieve in this country. We're actually getting more obese and sicker every year. The statistics are showing this. We're almost averaging obesity in this country right now, men and women. We're that close. So that's not working. Spending a ton of money, it's not that. It's about putting a plan in place. Move, eat healthy. I can't make it any simpler than that. I've created a lot of enemies in the health world because my business model is not to keep you on a track chasing healthy products, gimmicks. I tell you what to do. You do it. It works. If you don't, it doesn't. That's all I can say. I've spent decades in health. And if you get that together, what happens, the biggest part of being healthy is cognitive function. So once you get healthy, all of a sudden you start making better decisions. You start thinking more clearly. You can focus. You're not distracted. I only work 4 to 5 hours a day, pure work, because there have been a ton of studies done on that too. That's about as long as we can focus and we're done. That's it. And so I'm more productive with those 4 or 5 hours a day than most people are in a week sometimes. Because I know what I have to do. Well, that's because I'm healthy. I wake up, I'm ready to work, I sit down, and I work. And I do it undistracted. And I think that's kind of the key to writers. I tell people, just get your health in order. Start there. And not only that, but it's cheaper to be healthy. It's far cheaper to be healthy. That's another false thing about society today and our consumer nation, is that to be healthy, it costs a lot of money. No, it doesn't. I proved it in my financial freedom book. I did that whole book, as you know, you read it by numbers.
Yep.
I show that the average family can waste, and I've done this. I've done studies with families and made them write down how much they're spending eating out. It can be $500,000 to $1 million a family can waste eating out during their lifetime. And that process is also slowly killing them. Or quickly, depending how much you do it and where you eat. Yeah. So that's where I tell people to start. And then the financial side, obviously, by being debt-free. I've been debt-free. I've hovered in and out. People think that I'm 100% debt-free all the time. I leverage money. You're a financial guy. I do leverage money here and there to grow my business, to expand my property. I've leveraged money, short-term debt, to do that. But you have to be pretty advanced financially. I'm not saying I'm a genius by any stretch financially, But you have to be beyond just an average Joe or Jane today in life to be able to leverage money. You have to have some experience doing it because it can backfire. I've done it. I've done it a couple times. But by being debt free, what that does is it reduces the stress level. It reduces the fact that you'll be able to leave your job earlier and focus on writing if you don't have all these overhanging debts and financial burdens. So it's pretty common sense, but unfortunately, most people today don't seem to do it.
Right. Well, there's no real hurdles to getting into it either, right? They want to get credit cards going sooner, and
Yep.
even within our community, you hear people talking about, oh, well, if you've got something working out and your book's doing well, just go throw those ads on that credit card and
Never
deal
do
with
that.
it, and that kind of stuff. If you've thought through it and you understand the numbers, that the cost of your capital to do that, if you know that, then okay, you're making an educated decision. But if you're just doing it because some guy on Facebook tells you that it's a good idea, then don't be surprised when you find out that it didn't work out for you.
Well, it's kind of like gambling in Vegas, right? Going to Las Vegas and gambling. I always used a rule. I'm not a big gambler, but when I was younger, we used to go to Vegas, me and my friends here, because we lived pretty close. But I always had a rule because I was poor. And I was like, if I will not gamble money that I cannot afford to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't gamble very much,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you have to look at anything you do in your business. And as a writer, if you're going to run ads are gambling, especially if you don't know what you're doing in the beginning. You have to understand that you have to be willing to lose that money, all of it, and have none of it affect your lifestyle or life. If you can do that, fine. But that's the attitude you have to take, is that if I go in here and I lose all this, I'm still fine. I'm okay. I can pay my bills. It's a lesson. Everyone who you talk to who starts to run ads in any form as an author loses a lot of money in the beginning, to include me. And you can ask Mark Dawson how much money he lost in the beginning. I'm sure it was a lot. He doesn't go into spit because he probably didn't keep track of all of it. But he's pretty honest about it. Mark Dawson lost, if I remember right, it's tens of thousands of dollars, right? In the beginning. But he figured it out. Now he's the master. So, but he was willing to lose that money up front.
Yeah. And I think with anyone, when you're beginning as an author, debt is something that you have to be really careful with. But I thought would be interesting is, you in the book, you talk a lot about, ways to kind of get yourself out of situations. And a lot of the, you talk a lot about kind of the common things that we take as granted that really are costing us a lot of money. I thought would be good if from the perspective of an author that probably already has some debt, how they can maybe get their situation turned around, and then how they can kind of simplify their life so that they can be really focused on the business. I know you talked about health being part of it, but the finances, and then just some of the a lot like your philosophy. There's a lot of simple things. It's not like, hey, you've got my 28-day plan to do this or that. It's like, here's the things that you need to do. You do those, and you'll see profound change.
Well, yeah, I'm not your typical self-help author. First of all, I was never intended to be a self-help author. It found me. This was my life purpose that found me. So that's where my philosophies and the things I teach are a little different. Not only that, but as a self-help guy, I don't talk about anything I have not done myself, which is pretty unique in the self-help world today. It's a lot of regurgitated information and quick fixes and all this. I don't believe in that. If I haven't done it, I don't have experience in it, I don't have any, I should not be teaching it. It's the blind leading the blind is what it is. So that's part of it as well. So going to start with, I tell people, understanding that we're in a consumer economy. What does that mean? Our economy is about 70% based on consumerism. That means our economy is propped up by us spending money on a lot of things that we do not need. Now, this isn't tin hat foil guy going nuts. This is a fact. Our country is economically based upon this. So what does that mean? It means we are consumers. That's what we are. You have to decide what things you can live and live without. For me, I'm not a minimalist. I dabble in the areas, but I would technically probably not be considered in the minimalist crowd. Nothing wrong with that. But that's a different lifestyle. And I know people who do it. What it means is you have to look at things you purchase as a tool. That's how I look at everything. Mm-hmm. And there's this thing today called if it gives you joy, keep it, and all this, and organization of no. That's placating you. You need to get rid of stuff that is non-important in your life. And that means things, usually not your husband, wife, whatever. You may have to do that, friends. That's part of it as well. But mainly things. So everything I do, every purchase I make, I look at as a tool to make my life better, or something that I enjoy, but not enjoy to fill a void. Like I'm a biker. I ride mountain bikes and road bikes, but I don't buy the most expensive bikes. I've found that there's a high-low end of bike that is almost just as good as a bike 5 times the cost. There's a game played in Consumer Nation, and it's making you buy things you don't need. I only replace them when technology has evolved far enough for me to get a new bike. I just bought a new road bike. My old one's 13 years old. It's a better bike, but it's not that much better to where I need to go spend 10 grand on a road bike. And a lot of people do that. But looking at the things you need. So you want to be a rider. Well, that means you're going to have to downsize not only your finances, but maybe your living space. Maybe you can live in a smaller apartment. Maybe you can get rid of your house and rent for a while. I did that in a transition to my lifestyle, which I discuss in all my books. And I give the full outline of all my failures, everything. That's one thing I'm known for is I tell you how I fail. And I do it quite a bit. So that's where I learn my lessons. But start there. Go, what are the tools you're going to need to be a professional rider? Outside of that, do you need these items? How can you reduce your debt load? Maybe you can downsize your car. Most people, ground zero, 2 things that people waste money on out of the gate: credit cards. We all get in credit card debt. So the first thing I tell people is you need to get out of credit card debt and evaluate your automobile. Your automobile is a tool to get you from point A to point B. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I want a Ferrari. I could probably afford one somehow, but that would be a bad life decision. Yeah. So look at your car. Do you need, nothing against Lexuses, I use that example. Do you need a Lexus if you're making $20 an hour and living in an apartment? Probably not. Maybe you get a Toyota Camry. Maybe you get, a lower end car used that gets you point A to point B, is low on insurance, low on gas, doesn't cost much in gas. And I've found that's where people make the biggest mistakes in the beginning: credit cards, cars. The car financing isn't as big as usually impulse buying a car you truly can't afford. That's where we get hit.
Yeah.
So look at the basic things. And then, you have to evaluate, again, where do you want to go? What are your goals? Do you want to be a professional writer? Well, how many books are you going to have to write? How many sales of each book are you going to have to sell in order to make a living? Those are pretty basic. How are you going to be able to figure that out per se easily? No, but that's what 20 books to 50K teaches, right? That's what Craig and Mike teach, is evaluate what you're going to write in, what genre. So there's a whole lot of moving parts. And just taking it step by step, though, I think is the easiest, because people tend to jump in and go, I'm going to be an author. Okay, how are you going to be an author? What genre are you going to write in? Is there a demand in that genre? Is it highly competitive? Are you looking for a publishing deal? Are you going to be an indie writer exclusive? Well, there's math applied to that. And that's what 20 books to 50K is really, really cutting edge on, is helping you determine what it will take to accomplish that.
Yeah, I think that you hit on some good points. I know from the other thing that's real interesting, like in our case at our house, when our last deal when I sold that business and I was going to be working from home, just making the decision, like really getting down to the basics and questioning those premises about like,
Yeah.
because my thing was I was going to go out and get another car. Because I had a business vehicle, right? And we kind of stopped and it's like, do we even really need a second car?
Yeah.
Like, and your first thing is like, well, it's convenient. But if you really stop and you think through it and you figure like, well, there's the extra insurance, there's the gas, and how much is that car just sitting in the driveway? It's like, well, today there's so many other opportunities as far as using Uber or share vehicles or, so that you can maximize your opportunity. And, for authors, that money that you're not spending on that car, you think about a typical car payment, that could be a book cover each month.
On average, car payment, insurance, and maintenance is about $7,000-8,000 a year.
Yeah.
Big chunk of money, especially for an upcoming author. And that's what I mean. You have to determine, and that's what I teach. I'm teaching you what is important. And the main importance in your life is going to be your health, your family, and your life purpose and your finances. And I look at money differently. I don't, because some people go, well, you obviously have an issue with money. I go, no, I look at money as freedom. It's not going away. I live off grid. I'm a realist. I don't think I'm going to be able to trade pelts and barter my skills to pay bills. Now, people do that. Don't get me wrong. I do barter and I do some of that, but that's not realistic in today's society. Money runs the world.
Mm-hmm.
The more money you have, the more potential for freedom you have. The more freedom you have, the less money it takes to maintain that level of freedom. And I came up with that through my philosophy of life. That's my statement. I haven't seen it anywhere else. I may not be original. I'm sure. Who knows? But I always looked at it that way. And so every purchase I make, every time I buy something, I go, okay, if this is unnecessary, this is actually me chipping away at my own personal freedom. So if I go out and buy a set of golf clubs I don't need, well, now that money I've just wasted on that is literally taking my freedom away. That's what I've done. And that's how you have to look at money, how you have to look at debt. On average today, most Americans are in so much debt that they will be in debt for the rest of their lives. And I can say firsthand, you can pay it off. Don't let that discourage you. You can do it. I've helped a lot of people get out of a lot of debt. To include a girlfriend was where this started probably 15 years ago. That was one of the first people I helped get out of debt. And she was deep. I mean, deep. So what you have to look at is that debt, the less you have of it, it's almost like getting a raise. So say you pay off all your credit cards that were, I think on average, they're roughly $300-400 a month is what people are paying in credit cards. It may be more depending. Well, think of if you eliminate that debt. Well, now you just got a $300-400 raise a month.
Yeah.
Well, if you shop wisely, that could be your food. That's what I mean. You have to look at things differently. We're groomed to be consumers because that's how everyone makes their money. And some people take me as anti-capitalism. I am not. We don't live in true capitalism today. We live in crony capitalism. That's a different animal. I believe in making a good living, doing good, helping others, and keeping all the money you earn. That's capitalism in a sense, right? But today it's more of we make money, we spend money on things we don't need, and then we pay the rest in taxes. So it's being smart, and you teach that, Joe, about being, and I learned this 20 years ago when I started my own side business, about how using a business to reduce my tax load. And that's having a good accountant. My accountant's a good friend of mine. I've had him forever. And doing that. So structuring your business too, as a writer, it's essential. I'm so glad you teach that because I had to learn all this stuff on my own. and it took a long time.
Yeah.
And when I go to take the next step, heck, I'll be consulting with you,
Yeah.
to go to the next level when I have to figure out dealing with those millions of dollars,
Yeah.
how to structure correctly. But it's super important that if you are just starting, you need to talk to Joe and figure out how to structure your business, because it is essential for a rider to understand you are running a business.
Yeah. For, the reality is a lot of folks that are at that point of thinking about trying to write full time, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to be saddled with some debt. And
Yep.
what are some suggestions you have to, like you said, you've helped other people get out of it, but what are some suggestions people could like implement now to just get that ball rolling? Because it does compound on itself, right? The minute you start addressing it, it gives you more money to fix more problems you may have financially.
Yeah, the easiest, where I always tell people to start, is you have to list out your expenses. I mean, this is a no-brainer, you would think, but almost everyone I've dealt with, and we've done this, they've never listed their expenses. And I find that fascinating, that they have no idea how much money they're spending each month. None. They just know money in, money out. That's it. And you have to list everything down. Where are you spending your money? Food, utility bills, your power, water, car insurance, health insurance. You have to list it all out. If you don't have it right in front of your face in a list, you're not going to know how to prioritize. And you have to figure out, what are your essential living costs? Separate those out. Now look at the remaining costs and what is the biggest burden. I always tell people, though, it's easier to start with health because it doesn't cost you anything. It actually saves you money, and you can do it tomorrow. There's no, you can start tomorrow. Walking around the neighborhood doesn't cost you any money. Going and exercising doesn't cost you any money. Eating healthier actually costs you less if you do the math. You can start that. The next is credit cards. That's where I always tell people to start when you're talking about actual financial debt. And that is because it's the ones we all have. Almost everyone has credit cards. Look at your credit card, start paying off the lowest one. And you need to instantly get rid of your credit cards. I say keep one and hide it. Don't carry it with you. You need to hide it somewhere so you can use it in an emergency, because things come up. I'm a realist in life. There could be a time when you need that credit card to pay a medical bill or something.
Well, one thing that you're going to need that for is if you are getting to the point where you're going to need to advertise.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and if you are doing well, you're going to need that credit line to be available for your business, not for frivolous stuff. So
that's why I teach that. No, you're totally right. And that's why I teach that not having a credit card is not realistic today. You're going to have one, but you have to use it wisely. That doesn't mean carry it around in an emergency means you need a new pair of shoes. Yeah, you have to be smart about it. And also, I've been doing this for decades now. I use my points as savings. So I get probably $2,000-$3,000 a year between personal and business expenses cash back on my credit card. 2 credit cards. I have one personal, one business that I keep. And I pay them off every month. I've been doing that forever. I don't let them, but that takes special discipline. I always recommend get rid of all of them except for one, and make sure you get a low interest card. Don't keep a 25% interest card. Apply and get a lower interest card if you need to and replace that one. But start with your lowest balance first. And the reason I say this, and even Dave Ramsey has been talking, and I've been listening to Dave Ramsey. I started listening to him when he was on the radio a long time ago. And it's a basic concept. Pay the lowest one off first. Well, the reason is it's a psychological thing. Getting that first credit card out of the way, even though it may not be the highest interest, it's a psychological effect of you accomplished it. You got that first one done. And you go,
when you say the lowest, you mean the lowest balance.
Lowest balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's going to be the easiest one to pay off first. And then you can move on and you can tier it. Unless you have a really high interest rate card, I recommend just staggering. So start with the lowest, second lowest, third low, and just go up the chain and pay them off one by one. And that to me, is where you need to start, because almost every American's burdened with credit card debt. So, and it gives you the tools and the discipline to move further in the progression of being debt free. That's where it kind of starts.
No, I hear you. And, with some of our life decisions we're making as a family, you start to realize, because we live in Illinois, it's a high tax state. And I was talking with one of my friends, and just by making some of the changes we're thinking about making, like moving, right? Just by lowering that exposure to the taxes we have to pay for real estate, it's like getting a raise. Like you said, it's like all of a sudden I don't have to come up with all of that money each year. So the money I do have allows me to do things that right now, I can't do because I have to have that money go towards paying real estate.
That's a really good example, actually. I moved from California to Washington State. There was numerous reasons there, but one priority was financial. California is a high tax state, one of the highest. Gas is really expensive. Utilities are really expensive. Insurance is really expensive. Living is super expensive. And I just hit the wall and I went, why am I doing this? Why am I living here? Well, I picked Washington State. I love it. So it worked out great. I fell in love with Washington State years and years and years ago. But also there's no state income tax. So by me incorporating in Washington State saves me 5 figures a year in taxes right away. I live for free the part of the year when I'm not there because I save all that money by not paying California. I take my I live in my travel trailer in California. I don't pay the taxes. I'm not paying all the ridiculous amounts of insurance and all that. So that was one thing I did. And you don't have to do this. I tell people, don't live my lifestyle. It's your lifestyle. But I've known authors who are in LA and I'm all, why are you living in LA? You're not an established author. You want to be an author. You're in one of the most expensive places in the country. And it is really difficult to get around. It's congested. Why wouldn't you move somewhere else? If you truly, really want to be an author, I would move. You can make your money and move back. But to get starting out, you really need to evaluate your living conditions. I reduced my living. I sold before I left California. I went through phases and I reduced my living expenses by 2/3 once I made my decision to leave the government and get rid of my house in California. 2/3. I actually talk about this. One of the problems that arose from that was I had this freedom that I hadn't experienced in my life since I was a teenager with very little responsibilities because I had no bills, really. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do with myself because now I had reduced all these stresses that I thought I was going to have to live with for the rest of my life. And that all my friends and family to this day I'll still deal with. I don't. I was just like, what do I do? What do I do now? And I had to figure things out. And I didn't see that coming. It was actually a different type of stress that I went, oh no. I literally need to make a decision because I can do almost anything. That throws you off. How crazy is that today in today's society that you lessen the burden and you get out of the burdens of the things that are inhibiting us all today, and you freak out because you don't know what to do. You're like, well, okay, now what?
Well, you get overwhelmed with all the decisions, right? Human beings really don't want a lot of decisions.
No.
Right?
And we're not wired for it.
No. It's like going in and buying, anything in the store and there's 65 different types of olive oil.
Well, yeah. And that's health, right? I tell people health is not that hard. I use the example of the human body has not evolved all that much over the last 2.5 million years. Our digestive system is pretty much the same. The only thing that's changed is what we're putting in our bodies. So if you're confused about what to eat, just remove yourself from society today, throw yourself in the woods. What would you have access to? That is what the human body is intended to live on. And people go, well, that's a real oversimplification. I go, no, it's not. That's literally what we're designed for. And that's also, I use that as an example of life. What are humans designed for? survival and reproduction. That's it. Everything outside of that is noise.
Mm.
And so you have to look at life a little differently too. Of I'm not wired to be bombarded by multiple stresses every day. I'm meant to deal with two things: survival, reproduction. That's it. That's what I'm wired for. So that's why I look at too is my days are very, I wouldn't say structured, because I'm a structured guy and I'm not. I'm a creative anal guy is what I call it.
Yep.
I know that I need to accomplish tasks, but I'm flexible. I don't draw my line in the sand and say, if it's not this way, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to actually just deconstruct. I go, no. You have to be able to adapt, change, and go with the flow. And what that does is it tells me my day is set, but it's not set. I know what I need to get done. If it doesn't get done and something comes up, I need to be able to adapt to that. But that doesn't mean that I'm dealing with Facebook, answering 15 emails, doing text messages, doing interview. I schedule things to where it's step by step. Accomplish one thing, move to the next. Because another misnomer for authors is you have to be a good multitasker. Multitasking is the road to disaster. Mm-hmm. Humans are not meant to multitask. We're one task focused creatures for the most part. I'm not saying don't multitask here and there, but our brains are not wired to continually multitask. And it gets you off your target. If you're going to write, and I'm a little different animal. I don't know about you, Joe. I'm pretty sure you do this too. I don't dedicate writing time. I dedicate time to writing projects. So that means when I'm ready to write the next book, I've already written it in my head over months. I have an outline. I already have my outline written out. Then I sit down and I write it pretty much in one long stretch or short stretch. I get it all done at once. Mm-hmm. I'm an entrepreneur, so I don't have the ability to write every single day. I have multiple things that I manage besides writing. Mm-hmm. So I'd recommend people understand that too, that if you want to be a writer, you need to write. Don't screw around with social media while you're trying to write. Don't have other things scheduled. Dedicate quiet time to write. And that's it. Turn all that stuff off. Turn your email off, turn it all off, and write for an hour. Write for 2 hours. The world's not going to end in that time frame.
Well, no, and that's the thing that I talk about is once you decide that that's going to be your full-time career, that's the product, right? If manufacturing facility needs to be making its product. If it doesn't, it goes out of business. So you have to have dedicated time to making your product, and that's writing your book. So if you get that on a regular, sustainable schedule, then the business is going to perform well.
Yep.
And those words are kind of charged, right? Because that's not write as much as you possibly can. Right?
No, don't force it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of not forcing it. People would be surprised that I actually am very creative. I have a very analytical mind and a very creative mind that fight each other constantly. But I have to let the creativity flow. I don't force anything. If I am not able to write or I hit, which I'm lucky I've never hit, I think it's because I don't force it. That there's two types of writers. There's writers that have to dedicate every single day and write on a schedule. And then there's other people like me who write on schedules outside of a daily. It's like when I have the book ready, then I write it instead of writing a piece. But I'm a nonfiction guy. Fiction and nonfiction take two different writing styles too.
Yeah.
And it's different thought processes. Yeah. So it's about being organized. It's like working out. I tell people it's building habits. Humans are habit-based. To progress, you have to form positive habits and get rid of the negative habits. And that's every day dedicating to, or I dedicate a part of my day to exercise every single day. And people go, I'm not going to do that. Well, I hate to break it to you, but our bodies have evolved to move. We're intended to move every single day. 25% of the bones are in your feet. That's because those are automobiles. Those were original automobiles were our feet. So the same thing goes with writing habits. You have to put in a system that you can follow to make it a habit. And
That's a
I
good point.
teach two things I have 5 principles of the simple life. The last 2 are very simple. Do something today and every day. And the 5th one is something's better than nothing. They tie into each other. Most people think that they have to go 0 to 100 to accomplish a goal. That's not how it works. I work on something every single day. And if you take that mindset, you won't get overwhelmed. And that doesn't mean be complacent. It means that set a goal every day to accomplish, and it will become a habit without you forcing it. It becomes a habit on its own because every day you're working on some little piece. But, diet. Cut out 25% of the sugar you're consuming for 2 weeks. Then take out another 25% the next 2 weeks. And you keep doing this until finally you have very little, if any, sugar in your diet. Well, now that's a habit. You're eating healthy by habit because you're incrementally working on something. And that's another thing that I've found in life in my older years is that it never ends. You have to be working towards a goal to better yourself every single day.
That's really important.
Yeah. This saying, perfection is unrealistic to expect from yourself and others, but it's a worthwhile goal to pursue. I have said that many times, and I know I'll never hit perfection, but by aiming for it, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it was great to have you on. Before we go, why don't you tell folks where they can find out more about the Simple Life and your upcoming projects, things you have going on?
My website's thesimplelifenow.com. We're redoing it, just rebooted the new version. So be patient. There will be some glitches here and there. And that's where I sell all my books. All my books are sold there. My print's distributed worldwide through a distributor. I'm on Amazon. I have some audiobooks now. So you can find me pretty much anywhere, but the website's the easiest. I also have my new podcast, Your Better Life, which is a podcast that is open. As long as it's educational, I will talk about anything except for politics on a regular basis. There is politics in there, here and there, but it's based upon living a simpler life. And that's what it's about. The podcast is about just bettering your life in a multitude of different ways. And one of them is education and learning. But that's the best way to get a hold of me. I don't really use social media. So you sign up for my Simple Life Inner Circle at the website. You'll get all the updates and new podcasts and deals and when the new books come out and all that good stuff.
Great. Well, I suggest folks to check it out. There's some great stuff there, even if you're not looking to, go off the grid and do some of the stuff that Gary has done. That's all been kind of like a living experiment to test these ideas out and figure out some just, ways to simplify things. And like you always talk about, getting your freedom back. So it's great having you on, man. We'll have to do this
thanks,
again.
Joe. Well, I want to tell people too, what I teach works for everyone, far as whether you live in the city, you live rural, you live off the grid. The 3-legged stool applies to everyone.
Amen. Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Joe.